Welcome to the 30 Days Summit, where Russell Brunson has brought together a collection of his top 2 Comma Club and 8-figure award winners to share with you how they would literally survive and begin to rebuild their business in just 30 days if they lost it all. My name is Bailey Richard, and right now I'm delighted to be speaking with Peng, Joon. After Peng Joon made his first million online through selling products in the computer game niche, he decided to teach others how to monetize their knowledge, passion, and life experience, both online and offline. Over the past few years, he has built a following of over 1 million entrepreneurs, spoken in over 20 countries around the world, and has shared the stage with leaders like Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, and Robert Kiyosaki. So Peng, welcome to the summit.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm particularly delighted to be talking with you and diving into your 30-day plan because you are the only summit speaker that I've spoken with so far whose 30-day plan involves throwing a live event. And so I was wondering if we could start off briefly with just a high-level overview of the strategy here and what it is exactly that we're looking to accomplish over these next 30 days.
So the outcome is basically to do a live event at the end of the 30 days, which is day 28. So it's going to be a 3-day event to fulfill the sale, the offer. And to kind of make that happen, I think a good goal is 150,000. And that might seem a little bit high, but I know it's absolutely 100% possible based on like the statistics and the numbers that I have done. To be able to sell a room at $1,000 per ticket and pack and fill up the event by giving them a +1. And then the strategy behind that would be to do an upsell at the end of 3 days of giving massive value to a $10,000 offer. So that's the plan.
Okay, and your primary strategy for selling tickets to that live event is going to be webinars, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit more. You say in your 30-day plan that your strategy is to begin with 3 live webinars that you're going to do weekly on weeks 1, 2, and 3. So I'm curious as to why you favored this strategy versus just starting with an auto webinar or even pursuing some other strategy.
That's because I know that doing a live webinar, conversions is going to be slightly higher than an automated one. There is a difference when you actually start a webinar saying, hey, it's welcome to this webinar this Wednesday, and you actually mention the date and people know that's actually live and that you're there interacting with them. I think that compared to like 2 years ago, the audiences has really wisened up and they can smell that if it's just a replay but it's positioned as like a live webinar. So because I'm starting all over again, I will definitely do it live because of the difference in conversions.
Okay, I think it's a really interesting strategy to be using a webinar to sell a live event ticket, and I'm curious to know if there's any tips or advice that you would give us about how that process might differ than simply using a webinar to sell a $1,000 online course or coaching program. Any insight that you can provide into that?
The reason why I chose a live event is because I know that the perceived value of a live event versus a course, it's very different. Courses are pretty much red ocean. Everybody's trying to sell a course, but the barrier to entry to doing a live event is actually much higher, and therefore the perceived value. Like, put it this way, when was the last time anyone ever attended a webinar and said, this webinar changed my life? Possible, but it's very rare. A live event is where you can actually serve your audiences at the highest level, and that's where you can actually change somebody's life. And therefore, when you demonstrate that value in this period of 2-3 days, that's when they'll be able to see, and then that's where you'll be able to offer your high ticket products or services as well.
Okay, great. So could you share with us some of the strategies that you have for filling your webinar? You share a lot in your 30-day plan about that, and I'm really grateful. So I'd love to just pick your brain right now about some of those strategies.
Yes. So I think one main differentiator is this. A lot of times when people try to fill up the webinars, they run traffic to cold audiences based on interest and demographics. And while there's nothing wrong with that, the problem is that, number one, Facebook ad costs is only increasing by the day. The cost per lead, cost per registration, everything's going up. And if a person were to run ads purely based on interest, the ad cost is going to be very high. And there's really no edge. The biggest differentiator that is mentioned in my strategies is that I start off the relationship by giving value first. So what that means is, to start off the entire conversation, I will strategically create these value videos that there's no catch, there's no opt-in, there's no sale, there's no lead magnet. It's just straight up giving them value and then boosting these videos based on the thing they want to do, based on who they follow, based on their interest. Then when I boost it and when they know my story, the struggles, the successes, and the thing that they want to achieve, that's when I can create a retargeting audience, a custom audience to run ads to, and this extra layer is going to be a huge differentiator. And this is something that I notice many marketers are not doing enough. Like, I was just looking at the stats for our ads last month. The ones that has got highest ROI are basically audiences who has watched 50% of my videos. So to actually start the relationship off by incurring that little cost first, by just boosting strategic videos by $50, $100, that's when it's actually going to pay off a lot more in the long run, when we can actually retarget them rather than doing what most marketers do, which is just running ads to a cold audience based on interest.
Okay, fantastic. Great advice. So I want to talk about something that you mentioned during your 30-day plan that occurs during week 2. You've already done one webinar, you're getting ready to do another and then another after that, but yet somehow in your plan you find time to put together a 4-part video series product launch funnel. You know, you're already doing so much with these webinars and, you know, really keeping yourself busy trying to get those filled. So I'm curious as to what the purpose is here of that product launch funnel and how does this play into your overall strategy?
So like, so this whole product launch formula funnel by Jeff Walker plays a huge role, but things has changed over the last 7 years or so. So back then, when a lot of marketers would launch new things, they would come up with this 3 value video plus 1 sales video sequence, which is great. That has worked well 7 years back. But the only problem with this funnel is that when people run ads to this funnel, it's really hard to tell whether it's converting or not, because you would only know the results you generate like a week after. Because you're sending them to the sequence where it's video 1, 2, 3, and there's nothing for sale, and it's only like 6 days after do they get to go to the sales page. So it's really hard to monitor what's the return on investment, return on your ad spend with that model. However, when you actually stack it where you lead with the webinar funnel, here's what happens. What's going to happen is you're going to recover your money pretty much instantly the moment you run your webinar. So your cash flow problems are solved instantly. But then what usually happens is that there's a lot of people still sitting on the fence. And what most marketers would do is they just send them to the replay, and then they'll just keep hammering the replay, and then that's the end of the sequence. Maybe they send them to a replay with cliff notes, but that would be the end of it. However, with this funnel stack that happens on the back end, what happens now is that people who buy, the stick rate's going to be better because they felt like they got more value even if they bought. The people that didn't buy, who are sitting on the fence thinking, I don't know if I should get it, this is where they're going to be receiving additional value. And then you're going to be able, you have more time to answer all of their different objections, because again, these 3 videos doesn't just teach for the sake of teaching, it's really strategically answering objections. And then that's when you sell them to a sales video again. So that's why in week 2, I spent a lot of time developing this funnel. It is really to maximize the return on ad spend, because what usually happens is in a decent webinar funnel, you should be able to get about 2-to-1 returns on a good webinar funnel. But then after that, with good retargeting and sending them to the 4 video sequence, that's where it's going to be pure profit.
Okay, great. So that was week 2, and there's definitely a lot more activity to discuss in the latter part of your plan, which we will get to shortly. But I want to also mention that there is a separate thread of activity that's been occurring at the same time as you've been working on your webinars and product launch funnel, which has to deal with getting things set up for the actual event, such as the conference room and things like that. So I was wondering if you could share with us what some of those activities are.
So one of the things I've discovered after running all these different events is that running events, contrary to what most people think, is actually not expensive if you know how to broker the deal between the hotel and the participants. So one of the things that many hotels are willing to do is that they are going to be willing to significantly decrease the cost of the venue if you can actually show them and prove to them that by doing the event, you actually bring in business for them, which is basically hotel stays, the food, and all of that. So what many hotels are willing to do is they will give you this special link and they'll say like, they want a room block of maybe 15 rooms, 20 rooms, sometimes 50 rooms, depending on how big it is. And in fact, many hotels are willing to give you the entire meeting room, ballroom, sometimes even free, if you can actually fulfill that room block. So one of the things that we will do a lot is to negotiate and show them that by doing this actual event, you don't need to charge us on the venue because you're going to see that we're going to help you sell your rooms. So a lot of these back and forth with the hotel and the negotiation is going to be based around that angle.
Okay, great. I'm wondering also if you can share with us any tips about how you might structure your event. For example, do you only want to have a 1-day event or a maybe 3-day event? Maybe even logistically, what city do you favor for hosting it? Is it always the city in which you live, or maybe you look somewhere else? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Right. So I believe that 3-day events works best for a really good back-end sale, because that's when you'll have enough time to deliver value and demonstrate it and build that trust with the audience. In terms of logistics, I believe that when it comes to the seating, classroom style actually works best when there is no tech involved. So I think that being in an internet marketing space, many times we think that in order to demonstrate value and serve them at the highest level, it's about bringing the laptops in, plugging, getting connected to the internet, trying to build the thing in the room itself, when that actually decreases the energy in the room, which is really crucial. So one big tip here is that if you are in a space that feels like you need to be technical about it, so if it's forex, if it's trading, where you feel that they need to plug in, just be aware that whenever you get people to do their thing on laptops, that's when the focus actually goes down, because sometimes, and it's not through their fault, because what's going to happen is they're going to be really excited about this new thing they're learning, so they're going to be obsessed on their computers. But what actually happens is then they lose focus on you. So it's really hard to capture somebody's energy and focus when you have tech in room. So I'd say try to eliminate tech as much as you can when running an event.
Mm-hmm. And naturally, because you're hosting this event in front of hundreds of people, I imagine that this is a fantastic opportunity for you to capture photographs, video, maybe even repurposing the content a little bit afterwards. Are you doing any of that?
Oh, 100%. So I believe that every successful live event has got 5 main pillars to it. The first pillar is how you sell the tickets. So this is basically your funnel, your Facebook ads, your retargeting. Number 2 is getting them to show up. So many times we got to understand that just because they paid, they're not really sold by it yet. So you got to, so basically your follow-up, your pre-training, your little micro commitments that you get them to do before they show up is going to make a huge difference. Number 3 is basically what you teach at the event. How do you serve them the highest level? And most of the time, I always say this, it's not about the steps. Many times people think that to do a great event, it's about giving them all the steps and all the strategies and all of the each and every single thing to do, when in fact it's not about the steps. If you think about every single training that has changed somebody's life, you'll realize that it wasn't theory, it wasn't tactical, but it was because it was transformational. Like, how do we make something that's transformational? And you realize if you take a look at all those transformational events, it is because it was something that was beyond the steps. It either changed their mindset, their attitude, their belief system, because that's how you create lasting change. And the example I always like to give is, like, imagine in the fitness industry, if you were to teach somebody how to get six-pack abs, if you think about it, the steps is just exercise daily, eat right? It's a two-step process. And that is something everybody wants. Everybody wants to look good and be healthy. Nobody wants to be sick. But it's not about the steps, because everybody knows the steps. It's about that transformational mechanism that we need to give to our audiences, which is basically to do with their belief, their mindset, their thinking. So that's basically pillar number 3. If you want to serve your audience at the highest level, think beyond the steps, because that is the thing that will make all the difference. Number 4 is how you do the upsell. And you realize that at the end of the 30 days, I talk about the upsell, which is like the next thing they need to do. And number 5 is just what you talked about, which is leveraging the event. How do you create and document the testimonials? How do you digitalize part of your event so that it eventually becomes a digital asset? Perhaps you can use it in social media. Perhaps it goes on Facebook. Perhaps it goes on YouTube. And you really want to leverage everything that you can get from the live event, because one of the things that happens a lot of times when people do live events is this. I've seen many people get stuck between the $1 to $3 million per year mark because they get comfortable doing live events, because it can be very good money. But the moment they stop working, the income stops, because they're not doing step 5 well. They're not leveraging the event by turning it into a digital asset.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information about the live events. I want to return now to your 30-day plan and really discuss the latter half, particularly the last week and what's going on there. You mentioned that you'd actually turn at least one of your live webinars into an auto webinar, and also really start retargeting people who have seen your presentations but haven't yet purchased, using a lot of urgency and scarcity as the cart begins to close. But I'm curious to know what other activities are happening during these final weeks leading up to the actual live event.
So as I'm getting closer to the live event, it's basically preparation for the live event. It's basically turning that live event into a digital asset. Ultimately, it's how you leverage the live events that is going to create a lot more in the long run. So what happens towards the end is really thinking about, how am I going to serve them at the highest level? What would naturally be the next thing they actually need, and offer that to them. So like, a lot of times the mistake people make is they think that the next thing is a more advanced thing of the current thing, when you should think of it as, what is the next thing they need? Because what happens now is, if you sell or you offer a more advanced thing, what some of the customers will think is that you are holding out on them, that you didn't give everything you promised them just so that you can do the upsell, which is not the case, which should not be your intention. You should be giving them everything that you promised them, but think about what is the next thing they need in order to execute the thing that you just shown them. And that would be the thing that would make a great upsell. So the last week would be all towards strategizing that thing to serve them and continue that relationship even after that event.
You also talk in your 30-day plan about this concept of reselling, even to people who've already purchased a ticket to your event. What do you mean by that?
So what I meant is selling them the show up. So it's very possible that somebody pays for a live event, but turning up for a live event is a completely different thing. So that's where you want to have these little micro commitments, because when somebody does something, they're more committed to it. So that could become in the form of pre-training. Perhaps the moment they sign up, they're going to get some sort of training that says, okay, great. So that event is going to happen 3 weeks from now. Here's what you need to be doing now to really maximize your time with me when you show up for the event. These are 3 things I would like you to do and prepare before you actually come. So that's an example of pre-training to sell them the show up. You want to do it in a series of an email sequence. It could be in form of videos, or give them a very simple membership site with just 3 videos in there for each deliverable for them to prepare before they actually show up.
Fantastic. Peng, I have loved talking with you about your 30-day plan and this entire live event strategy. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience that I didn't ask you, specifically about your 30-day plan or just about this entire strategy in general?
I really believe that most people are just one live event away, right? We always hear just one funnel away, but I really do believe that when a person understands how live events work, live events can change everything.
Awesome. Peng, thank you so much for sharing all of the incredible value that you have on today's interview. We really appreciate it. For those of you watching at home who are ready to embark on your own 30-day path to success, I have something awesome to share with you. It's called the One Funnel Away Challenge. You can learn more and upgrade today by clicking the button on this page, where you're going to get an opportunity then to create your own customized and personalized 30-day path to getting your next award-winning funnel launched with the direct help and guidance of a ClickFunnels 2 Club coach. But that is not all you'll be getting. You're also going to snag some truly incredible bonuses, including a physical copy of the 30 Days book, where we've compiled all of the written plans from every single one of the speakers on this event. You're going to get unlimited access to the interview that you just saw with Peng, and of course, all of the other summit speakers that you are watching on the 30 Days Summit. And here's my favorite part. You are also going to be getting a second behind the scenes interview that I've recorded with every single speaker on the event, where they are going to be showing me via screen share how it is that they've actually set up their own 2 Club funnels. I am so excited for the value inside all of those videos, and I don't want you to miss out on it. So make sure that you check out the One Funnel Away Challenge by clicking the button and upgrading today. One more time, Peng, thank you so much for being a part of the summit. We really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.